Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello students, welcome to the Women's Writing lecture series, lecture number 9. In this particular topic, we are going to learn something called dialectics. Dialectics is a very interesting idea that the philosophers have come up with. In this particular idea, we will get to know a lot of things that relates to not only literature, but the way we lead our life, the way we think, the way we see the things around us. All of these have in themselves a minute level of dialectics to a major level of dialectics. The entire world revolves around this idea, and when it comes to women's writing, we will also see something called resistance. Resistance is everywhere. If there is a force, there will be a counter force, and that counter force is resistance. So, literature as resistance is something that we are going to study in this topic. Let us move forward. Examples of resistance in literature. Because this series is based mostly on written literature, therefore, we are first of all going to focus what are the areas in which we find resistance. Like I said, that whenever there is a force, whenever there is an entity that is imposing their things, their thoughts, their ways of doing something on the on another person, there will be a counter force always. That is very similar to Newton's third law of motion. It is like a universal constant. When there will be an action, there will be an equal and opposite reaction. Only in case of life, it is not always the equal amount of reaction, because there is something called a majority and there is something called a minority. When we come to literature, we face many kind of resistances, and let us try to understand what those resistances are, or in which sections of the way of literature we find these resistances. So, here are the examples that we have. Number 1 is characters resisting one another inside the narrative. We have discussed a lot about the narrative in our previous lectures. Here what happens is that one character is having one type of opinion, one kind of opinion, and another character is having another kind of opinion, and they are telling each other their opinions, and one character starts imposing their opinion on the other character. For example, if there is a father and there is a daughter in a family, the father tries to impose his or her opinion on the daughter that you are not going out of the house at after 6:30, and that is how the rule of the family is. But the daughter is convinced that it is her right to go out of the house at 6:30 because she is old enough to take care of herself. So, she refutes the command of the father, and there is a kind of resistance to the command of the father. So, this is in a story setup, it is in a narrative setup, and we all know that literature is a sort of image, a kind of mirror that shows life as it is. So, in these two characters, when they are contradicting each other, when they are quarreling among each other, not in the verbatim sense, but symbolical, one is giving one's opinion and the other is refuting that opinion, there comes a resistance. So, the characters resisting one another inside the narrative, inside the story setup, right. Next example is author resisting easy money to compose a good piece of literature. You must have known lots and lots of authors who are very famous by writing small storybooks like children's stories, detective stories, novellas, romance novellas, erotic stories, and they earn quite a lot. That means when you go to the publishing industry, that time if you have written something which the people, common people will even understand, then you are going to earn a lot of money. But if you are a very good author who want to send a message to the world, like the Nobel laureates, take for example Gunter Grass, Ernest Hemingway, Kazuo Ishiguro, they are the best authors of their time. So these authors, they have not written some romance novels, some popular literature, something which is very insignificant and which has only a limited kind of what should I say, not really related to the philosophical or the academic world. When these people are writing, they are not writing for the easy money, they are writing for the humanity, the entire population of the earth. They are thinking beyond that money. So the writers here, they constantly resist temptation. So in this case, it is resisting a kind of temptation, greed. So one trend of writing is that you write what people want, you write some masala articles and people will gobble that up every time they read and you will be happy. On the other hand, you write something which is truly meaningful, you write something which adds value to human existence on this planet. That is not easy, and that may not give you easy money, but that will do good to the humanity. And maybe in the meantime, after a long time when you have pursued that work, you will also be up for the Nobel Prize, or you will be receiving the higher academia's accolades. You will be applauded all over the world for your contribution to literature. You will be that time representing the age, the essence of the age, the essence of the time you are living in. So this will be a beneficial gesture towards the people whom you are sharing your timeline with. So this is the second one, the authors are resisting. So one is a trend of earning easy money, and the authors who are really looking forward to a better future, they are resisting the trend that no, we are not going to earn that easy money. So there is one idea, you can earn easy money, another idea, no, we don't want to earn that easy money. What is the third one? Author resisting the popular medium. I am not sure whether this is popular enough, but there is something which has come up very recently, and it is called as electronic literature. In this kind of literature, if you go and just Google it, electronic literature, you will see there is an entire website, there are softwares created for you to create a piece of literature, and that will not include only writing, that will also include something which is called as fragmented bits of other types of what should I say, other types of medium. For example, you can add some text, your writing can have some text, it can also have some sounds, background sounds. So that particular piece of literature may include text, may include some sounds, even it can include some puzzles. Alongside puzzles, you can also have some kind of games within that particular piece of work, because that software integrates all of these things. There is a work called The Patchwork Girl. Just go and look it up. It is a kind of electronic literature. So the Patchwork Girl is such kind of an article which shows you, such kind of a narrative which shows you that there are multiple mediums at work when you are writing an electronic piece of literature. So this kind of literature does not have a fan base as you might have imagined. Of course, those who are technologically very savvy, those who are technologically technological friendly, they will be very much attracted to this kind of literature. But say for example somebody who is not that much tech savvy, who has not been able to access computer other than searching for articles on the Google, that person may not be very much comfortable with viewing this kind of literary work, because it has sound, it has text, it is a kind of a multimedia kind of presentation, work of literature. So what happens in that case? In that case, the author is trying to resist the kind of literature that people have thought of till today. If there is a text, they think that it is a book and the printed letters are on it. You have to read those printed letters in front of you, like you are reading the PPT right now, and those printed letters will give you the story. Out of that, literature is not composed. Verbal argument or verbal, the way you are using the words that is coming out of your mouth, it cannot be literature. It is just a representation of the written form of literature. That is the idea they have. But let me tell you, this is also the new kind of literature which is coming on. We call it as, that is called as Twitterature. You just go into the Google search engine, type Twitterature, you will find all sorts of articles written on that. And even research is going on how Twitterature is affecting the world around us. Your Insta post, your Facebook post, your reels, all are becoming a part of the technological world, the virtual literature that is being created on a daily basis. When somebody 1000 years from now, of course I hope the humanity survives 1000 years, I also hope that the planet Earth survives 1000 years, because the pollution is increasing day by day. We don't know what is going to happen. But if it happens to survive, after 1000 years we are going to look back and see, okay, on this day in 2020, which is 1000 years ago, because now it is 3022. So in 2022, people were actually reading subjects via the Swayamprabha course. They are reading it via the television, the direct to home service. Because education had been upgraded to that level, the government of India has taken certain actions. Not only the schools which are in the rural areas of India that have not been previously had access to education, but also the the urban areas, the cities, they are also having this kind of educational service, so that somebody who is working in a restaurant during the daytime can take classes inside their home at the night time. This is also it is also an effective and economic approach towards education. Now, this is a way in which this modern world functions. So, this kind of literature that is being created at this moment, this literature is not a written piece of work, and it is not a written composition. It has multiple medium. I am speaking, you are listening, there is a PPT in front of you. Even in some lectures you will be hearing videos, listening to other music or something. So, it kind of becomes a multimedia package. So, authors resist that kind of medium that the previous people used to do. The third point here is audience resisting a new kind of character. Suppose you are in the 1900s. In the 1900s you are born and you are being brought up in that culture. Now you are trying to access the 2020 movies, the theatre, the kind of people that are emerging every day. A woman character or a male character or a female character, in today's world, the amount of freedom a female character enjoys is not acceptable to the traditional, the customary, the customs and values of the 1900s India. In 1900, if you go and tell, okay, a woman can, go outside at 10, party, enjoy and come back, and she is also going to the school, college, and she is going outside for education, people would be awed. How is that possible? Women are supposed to be inside the house. That is how the concept of Andar Mahal has become very much prominent during that time. Women had all sorts of restrictions in their life. Women were not allowed to have allowed to access the Western education. But right from the time they started having conflicts with the state, with the society, they started having economic crisis, people were forced to go out and work. Working women were out of the question in the 1900s. So, if you write a piece of work where you are putting a working woman inside it, of course, the people who are reading that literature during that time frame, they will not have any idea what you are writing about. They will say it is outrageous, it cannot be a part of the literature. Now, if you are an author who is visionary, who can see what is beyond this time, who can predict the future, is going to introduce new kind of characters, and that new kind of characters is going to face a lot of criticism. You will be very shocked to know that one of the very good American authors, playwrights, his name is Edward Albee. Yeah, and of course, there are other authors during that same time, Harold Pinter, then there is Samuel Butler. These people, they started staging plays which are very odd. You will go and find works like Waiting for Godot, then The Birthday Party. T.S. Eliot had also written something like that. These authors, initially the reception was very poor. People said that what gibberish are you writing? Why is the person, there are only two people on the stage, and throughout the entire play those two people are talking to each other, that is all. And in the sometimes one person is coming and saying you wait for somebody and then they are going. So, at that time people are not able to connect to that, what is going on. But later on, when people started understanding the inner meaning, the underlying themes of the drama, they became very much comfortable with that kind of medium. So, there is initially always a resistance to the new, always. You find in your family, I can give examples, your grandparents, if you go and say please use the mobile phone, it is very handy, they would say no, I do not want to use it because it is very complicated. They will just keep it on the top shelf of their drawer, and every day they will take it out, wipe it with a nice napkin and then put it back. They will just keep it as a memento, they will never use it. And of course, I am generalizing, there are many grandparents now who are also very tech savvy, but I am talking about 20-30 years back, impossible. Nobody accepted that grandparents are going to use a mobile phone. Nowadays it is not a problem, but initially there was resistance to the idea. Nowadays when the father and mother is working, the children are at school, somebody needs to communicate with the parents at home, if they are the grandparents at home, if they are okay, if they have taken their medicine, if they are feeling good. So, a mobile phone becomes very handy in that case. So, you cannot fight an idea whose time has already come. You Google that app, it is a very important kind of statement that some very interesting person has given. You cannot remove an idea, you cannot defeat an idea whose time has already come. Okay, next is the publishing industry resisting new kind of literature. Of course, if the popular literature wants that there should be a romance inside the text, the publishing industry will say no, you cannot write this. What, a person who is meditating all the day, why are you writing this kind? You put some masala into it, you put some romance into it, there should be a boy, there should be a girl, there should be some kind of problem in their relationship, because audience loves it. Because if audience love it, then your book is going to be sold in millions, and if your book becomes the bestseller, then I will be rich. So, there is always, if you want to say no, I want to write a campus novel on the realities of academia, I want to write something about what is happening in the society, it may not be a very happy kind of novel, it may be a tragedy, may be a sad novel. It can be something which is deeply disappointing because people need to know. But your publisher will say, no, 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 we are not going to publish this, because this is not something the audience love very much to read. But again, let me tell you, the best books that get awarded, the Booker Prize Award, the Nobel Prize Award, of course the Nobel Prize is not given to a book, it is given to the entire person. The Orange Prize Award, the White Bread Award, all these awards go to books which represent humanity, which represent the condition of humanity. It is not based on some popular, how popular a book becomes. So, if you are a very good writer, if you want to write good piece of literature, you have to be creative. They give points for creativity, they do not give points for fitting into the mold. All right. So, the last point on this page is the language of the literature resisting to be patriarchal. When you are using a language, for example, you are describing a person, a female person, and how she is coping with the problems in her family, and every time you describe her, you say that she is very sad, she is disheartened, she is disappointed, she is depressed, and she goes here, talks to this person, tries to find answers. Every time you are using words which make her look pathetic, which make her look as the victim, which make her look as she is supposed to look. But if you use words which make her look strong, which make her look even decisive in her own commanding her own life even in the face of adversities, that is a language which does not go by the rules of patriarchy. If your language is very subtle, if your language is very restrained, if your language is only hinting at the badness of life, then you are probably following the patriarchal tradition. In that case, your language will be nothing, new. But if your language is something which is unbridled, which does not have any kind of chains to it, which can flow on its own, that may not be acceptable to the people, but it will be a language of resistance. We will talk about this more as we move forward. Now we come to the center of our discussion today, dialectics. I will move through this topic very easily so that you may not have any doubts. Of course, this need not be repeated twice. So, if you listen to me very carefully, you will be able to understand it in one go. Now, coming to the point where we discuss the word dialectics, it is a term from philosophy. So, we must understand that it is interdisciplinary approach, because when you are studying one particular discipline and you are referring to another particular discipline, it becomes a conversation between two disciplines. So, that is why we call it an interdisciplinary approach. So, we take a term from philosophy, and that is, this term is dialectics. It is also known as Hegelian dialectics. Why? Because G.W.F. Hegel is the German philosopher who came up with the idea. The idea was always there, but somebody took pains to write it down, to document it, to develop it. Okay, there is an idea. So, and spread the word throughout the world, so that everybody will now stand a chance to formulate their ideas from there on, because this is one of the basic ideas from which ideas develop. Okay. So, 19th century German philosopher G.W.F. Hegel, he came up with the word called dialectics. So, what is the theme? The theme or the core crux of this particular area is opposing sides, logical concepts opposed to one another. So, there is one concept, there is another concept, and when they are actually on opposition, So, if one concept is here and another concept is somewhere over there, they are not in fact in opposition, because they are not facing each other. In this case, they are definitely in opposition to each other, and this can be a part of dialectics, Hegel's dialectics, and it thrives on contradiction. So, my right hand, first it has the thumb, and then on the inside it has the thumb, and on the outside it has this, and this is the same with this hand and this hand, but I cannot do some I am a right hand user, so I will not be able to write with this hand on the board, or I cannot talk to you, the most dominating hand is the right hand. So, they will have some kind of differences, although they are moving in complete unison right now, but they will have the differences. What my right hand is able to do, my left hand is not that capable. So, in this case, they two, although they are attached to the same body, but they have different ideas, they have different functions. So, now I can say that these two are facing each other, opposed to each other, and this altogether becomes both of my hands, and that gives me my strength to pick up a cup of coffee, or my strength to hold something together very firmly. So, both the hands play a role in that. This is the model in which, or rather this is the direction in which the dialectics work. Dia means two. So, there will be two parts, dichotomy, dialectics. This is like relation between two things. How does it work? Let us see. There develops idea 1. Okay, let us take idea 1. It is I have used a word over here which I am going to use again. I have not used these words right now. That waits to be tested. One idea has cropped up in your mind, and you are not sure whether your idea is the right idea. Eventually means after some time, maybe after a few minutes, after a few days, after a few years, there comes idea 2. In that same manner, that same topic, around that same topic, you develop another idea, right? You can develop, somebody else can develop, but the idea is related to the same incident, related to the same people, the same subject and everything, but the idea is different, and it is opposing idea 1. So, idea 1, which was not tested before, is now being tested by the presence of idea 2. So, now you have to pick and choose whether idea 1 is right or idea 2 is right. Idea 1 and idea 2 confront each other. Now, suppose I take this up, and this is idea 1 and this is idea 2. Now, whether I should use a pointer or whether I should use a pen, that becomes a problem. If I am writing on a page, I will be using a pen. If I am writing on the screen of a tab, then I will be using a pointer. So, in this case, these both of these ideas are different, but the function is the same, writing, right? So, they confront each other, and idea 3 is born. After I have understood both the ideas, now I have an idea 3. Is idea 3 a completely different idea? No, it is somewhat the sum of idea 1 and idea 2, but there are many things in idea 1 and idea 2 which is not taken in idea 3, and there are many other things which are included in idea 3 which were not there previously in idea 1 and 2. Now, we are going to take a life example. This entire idea thing you can rewatch after I have discussed the example. Let us say idea 1 is a woman must seek job for financial independence. Of course, you must have seen your sisters, your mothers, whoever is there who is not working, they have to ask money from their male counterparts every time in the family. What happens is that your mind gives an idea, woman must seek job, I must get a job in order to get financial independence, so that I do not have to beg money from other people all the time. Idea 2, a woman must also look after the child at the home. So, if the woman is going out to work, who is going to take care of the child? The woman must also look after her own children. In that case, idea 1 is in contradiction with idea 2. Now, we have an idea 3, that is, a woman spends time with the child, and when she is at work, so when she is at home, she spends time with the child. When she is at work, the child is taken care by the grandparents or a nurse. She hires a nurse, or she talks to her parents, talks to the father's parents, that could you please take care of the child for 8 hours or 9 hours while I am away. So, of course, if she is earning to support the family, everybody is going to help her. So, she is giving the child, keeping the child in care of the grandparents or the nurse, and then she is going to job. So, idea 1 is also there, that she is going to take a job and she is going to earn money. Idea 2 is also there, that she is going to take care of the child when she is at home. But idea 3 is a bit more than that, because there she has to balance the life between job and her family. She has to travel to the job place, come back from the job place, deal with all the pressure at job, and then come back and deal with the child and the grandparents. Even if it is the nurse, deal with the nurse. So, all of these things come up in idea 3. So, now let me tell you, the first idea is a thesis. The second idea that erupts from that, which contradicts the first idea. The first idea is a woman must earn money. The second idea, woman cannot earn money because she has to take care of the child at home. Now, they are fighting against each other. They are resisting each other. This resistance is creating the third idea, that okay, let 10 hours be given to the job and 14 hours to the family. Of course, this is the synthesis. Synthesis is a kind of process which takes into consideration all the constituents and then forms something new. So, thesis, antithesis, and then when the two ideas collapse into each other, they form a completely different idea, a new idea which has some similarities with the original ideas, and that becomes a synthesis. This includes the struggle in our day-to-day life. Every day we face this kind of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Your boss says you have to do this work, you are expected to be home by 5 because there is a program, a ceremony in your home. So, you have to argue with the boss, you have to argue with the family. So, there is one idea, there is other idea, and both the ideas you have to tackle separately. There is always resistance. There is always synthesis. You are always coming up with the third idea. That is the synthesis which takes us throughout the day. So, moving on to the portion where we talk about women's writing, especially about prose. Here I have mentioned some authors whom we have discussed in this lecture throughout. Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper. If you read this story, you will find there is a character in the story who is fighting against herself because she is descending into madness. She is trying to resist. She is seeing that a woman is, walking on all her fours, and she is somewhere in the garden, she is moving and she is creeping. She sees that she is hallucinating. But someday the author starts to realize that it is herself who is creeping around in her own room. So, there is a resistance to the idea of being trapped, because when she started developing symptoms of madness, her husband locked her up. That is the only thing he did. He said, okay, you need to be alone, you need to be in a peaceful situation. Saying all these good things, he locked her up in a complete loneliness, in a single room where she can only look at the outside world through the balcony. So, in that setting, of course, a person will descend into madness quickly. So, instead of resisting that kind of thing, she starts to give in, but there is always a resistance to the patriarchy, that you cannot lock me up, why are you locking me up? So finally we come to know that she has completely become mad, but she thinks she is free, because the house, the room that she was locked in had a yellow wallpaper, and she was starting to see that woman crawling across the room on the wallpaper. So she starts tearing the wallpaper from the wall. She thinks that the woman is trapped inside the wallpaper. Once she starts tearing it, then she starts creeping on the floor, and she thinks that now the woman is free who was trapped inside the wallpaper. It's a very creepy story, but it is a very symbolical, very powerful story. Once you read it, you will understand the problem that the woman was facing. Now we take another author, Rasundari Devi. She is an author from Bengal, and let me tell you, it is not a very new author. She was writing, in the early 20th century, late 19th century, that kind of thing. And she wrote an entire autobiography based on her childhood memories, her experiences with her friends, her family, her marriage, her children, her in-laws, her work, the amount of exploitation she went through but happily endured because she loved the family. She even talks about how she went on for days, for 2 days without eating, because she did not have time to eat. She was caring for one child, she was caring for another child, she was caring for somebody else, she was serving food to the family, she was doing all the household works. She did not find time to eat, because in her household, the woman, the mistress of the house, cannot eat in front of everybody. The mistress of the house will first serve food to the guest, to the husband, to the children, to the servants, and then what is left she is going to eat. That was the idea of life of a woman in that society. So she has written all of these things, and she has continuously, incessantly asked for God's strength. She has written again and again that my mother had taught me how to resist all kinds of worries, how to resist the temptation of running away, and God has given her strength. That is what she writes in her autobiography. It is Amar Jibon. It roughly translates as my life. Mahashweta Devi. She is also another author who writes about the struggle a woman faces in her story Draupadi. Draupadi is actually a tribal woman who revolts against the exploitation of the landowners of her village. The zamindar who owns the land, there was, of course, they did not own the land previously, but because the tribals, they ran into debt, they were not able to pay back the money, so the zamindars took their land. So when this zamindar tries to shut all the wells during drought means when the water, there is no rainfall, there is no water around, so the well was in his dug in his land. So that the tribals would not come and drink from the well, he shuts it off. He locks the well inside his own premises, and he does not allow anybody to drink from it. This becomes a problem, because when a human being is thirsty, that human being becomes very dangerous if you are not serving water, if you have water, because it is the living source of life. So the tribals get together, they tie up the zamindar and they kill him. Now what happens is that the state issues soldiers, and the soldiers come, they cordon off the village, they surround the village, and they machine gun the whole village, because they have killed the zamindar, and the zamindar was under the protection of the state government. So is it right or is it wrong is not a matter of something which we should be deciding at this point. This is what happened. Now what happened is that same Draupadi is being hunted by the police. Once the police captures her, they think that okay, now we have captured her, now we are going to molest her, rape her, mutilate her, make her do the worst things, and she will regret killing that zamindar. But instead of that, even with a bloody body, even with a bloody naked body, Draupadi is laughing at the face of the Senapati and all the characters who have captured her. She has been forced to stay inside the camp, she has been raped over and over again, and the body which is standing on sheer willpower, because she did not eat and drink for 2 days. And even then the body of the woman is not at all subjugated to the male patriarchy or the law of the land. Draupadi stands over there and confronts the people that, okay, if you are like that, you are no longer men, you are like animals. I don't care about animals. If you were people, I would have been ashamed of my body, but you are not people, so I am not ashamed of my body. So that kind of statement, that kind of resistance you find in literature. So on one hand there is power, and then another hand there is another power which tries to counter or contradict the major power. Similarly, Alice Walker, The Color Purple, you will know that in Color Purple there is a girl called Miss Sally. She is again a victim in her childhood. Her father molests her, rapes her, but she still survives and becomes a responsible older sister. Then her sister also leaves. The entire thing is in the African American setup in America. If you read the novel, you will understand what kind of a woman Miss Sally is and how she always wrote to God. All the chapters in the novel begins with "Dear God," because she has nobody else to address, and the only person she is going to address at this particular point of time is God. Next is Bapsi Sidhwa, the Pakistani Bride. Here we have discussed this novel in one of the following upcoming lectures in details. Here you will find that there is a tremendous kind of struggle of a girl who was born and brought up in Lahore, but is married off to some tribal man in the Kohistan mountain, that is in the Hindu Kush mountain. The man who is living on the mountain is a barbaric one. He does not know what is rule, what is law, and that domestic violence should not be done. So the girl who belongs to the plains, who was in a place where rules and laws and regulation meant something, when she is married to a person who is living in a mountain village, that person does not know the rule of the mainland, and this girl does not know the honor rule of the mountain land. So in that situation, when the girl is abused, when the girl is beaten up, she tries to run away, and the entire village starts looking for her, not to rescue her or to bring her back, but to kill her, because she did what other women could not do of that village. She ran away. So that is some kind of struggle in the literature, in the characters, in the texts that you will be reading in this lecture series. These are some quotations. You can have a look and you can see how the language changes. If you look at the language of resistance, I have written here language of resistance, that how the language, the English language in this case, is changing. You will feel that this language is not actually the language other authors, other writers would like to use. See, shaming her, this is the normal way. Of course, if somebody is beaten up, somebody is molested, we consider it as shame. Shaming her, a tear trickles out of the corner of her eye. In the muddy moonlight, she lowers her lightless eye, sees her breasts, and understands that, indeed, she is made upright. Her breasts are bitten raw, the nipples torn. How many? 4, 5, 6, 7? Then Draupadi had passed out. Again another excerpt. The moon vomits a bit of light. Here the moon is not something which is beautiful. Here the moon also is described in such terms that it sort of gives you an image, repulsive image. Here you see that the word that has been used is vomits. It is not something of a beautiful word. It is something which gives you a kind of sensation of creepiness. It makes you feel bad. This word is not something which is disappointing. This is something which makes you feel awkward. The moon vomits a bit of light and goes to sleep, as if the moon is drunk. Only the dark remains, a compelled spread-eagled still body. Active pistons of flesh rise and fall over it. This is the sort of symbolic representation of the way Draupadi is molested and raped throughout the night. This is not a kind of fantastic description. It is a description which is filled with anger. It is not a description that is filled with remorse or disappointment. This description is something which is very clinical, very realistic. It is not trying to disguise it. It is actually saying what it is. Draupadi stands up. She pours the water down on the ground. So, somebody thought that when she is brought to the court or is brought to the authorities, she must drink water and she must be strong because she is suffering from all sorts of wounds all over the body. But she does not drink the water, she just drops it. Tears her piece of cloth with her teeth. So, somebody thought that okay, now we have to present her in front of the authority, now we should put up some kind of cloth over her. But she says no, I am not going to wear clothes. She does not say that, she tears the cloth with her teeth. Draupadi comes closer, stands with her hand on her hip, laughs and says, the object of your search, Draupadi Medjan, you asked them to make me up. Don't you want to see how they made me up? See the kind of voice, you can almost hear that voice in your head. That person who is bleeding all over, that person is going and asking a question, and this question is not something, for example, will you let me live? The question is, don't you recognize me? Don't you know me? Don't you know who I am? This person is the person you wanted to see. You gave the orders to torture me. Now you have to see, this is the person I am standing in front of you. So, do you think that this is the work or the words of a victim? If it is a victim, the victim will go and cry in some corner. If the language was like that, it would show that how the victim is very sad, how the victim is not very, very accommodating, the victim is uncomfortable. All sorts of things, all sorts of situations can come up. All these things will be indicated by the words, but none of these things are seen in this case. She is very confident on the other hand. She says that okay, I am this person. She is even taunting. She taunts. She is taunting the person that has given the orders of torture. Can you consider her as a victim? No, that is the language of resistance. She is not being portrayed in such a way so that readers feel sorry for her. The feeling of the audience is not that of being sorry. The feeling of this audience, this particular text, the audience is rather afraid. The audience feels a kind of powerlessness in front of this powerful figure of Draupadi. She shows such kind of power that the audience feels that we are cowards. If she can do it, why can't we? When we are tortured, why can't we stand up? We always cow down, we always run away. But she is the language of resistance. So, we have already discussed this, the resistance first of all. One order and resisting that order. They ordered that the villagers should not drink water. There was a resistance that yes, we are thirsty, we are human beings and we are going to drink water. There was one kind of idea, there was another kind of idea, and they came into contact, they clashed. And there was this third idea that let us kill the zamindars and we can get water. Then in the last, when you come to the text, there is one idea that we are going to molest her, we are going to torture her, she is going to break under the torture. But then there is another idea. Draupadi says that no, I am not going to break. You are the one who are going to break, you are the one who are going to be afraid, because she is like the goddess Kali. The idea of the entire goddess is not love or compassion. The goddess Kali is actually, the image of goddess Kali is made in such a horrible way, is a horrific representation of death, of terror, of bloodshed, of warfare, all the dangerous things. And she roams around naked and people are afraid of that kind of image. So the entire image that is being created is that of Kali. Reading about the wrong, of course it is a wrongdoing. When you read about that, when you read the previous slide, when you read this paragraph or you read this paragraph, these lines show you what kind of wrong a human being can do to another human being. In that case, you feel discomfort. You are not very comfortable with these lines. When somebody in front of you talks about rape, addresses the issue of torture, talks about a female feticide, you become uncomfortable. No, let us not talk about that. Those things are not very helpful. Those things are, it should be kept behind the curtain. It should be hushed up somewhere. So this discomfort is actually what the authors want to do. They want to make you uncomfortable. So once you are out of your comfort zone, you start understanding the reality, you start appreciating the reality, and then you make some actions, then you take some decisions or do something to change that reality. And of course, I have talked about how the language changes. In the beginning the language, and in the end the language, it has completely changed, although it started with a patriarchal mode so that all the audience will be engaged, but by the end of the story the language has completely changed. There are no words indicating feelings. When you read the previous text, do you see that there are words which are showing emotional attachment of Draupadi, of the main character? No words are there in this text which shows some kind of emotional attachment or gives a hint of what the emotions are playing in this particular scenes, because once you are talking about the emotions, it becomes difficult. This emotion, the only emotion that is being indirectly hinted at is rage. Rage. Why? Because there is idea 1 and idea 1 is not good. So there should be idea 2. This idea 2 is the rage, is that rage, and when these two idea they confront each other, then we have a third idea. So the only emotion that is being recorded in these scenes are rage. It is not showing that Draupadi is very sad, very disappointed, very pathetic. She wants to kill herself. No, she is still fighting, and so is the language. These are some poems that you can go through. Emily Dickinson's poetry, I Cannot Live Without You, An Introvert Resistance to People. I'm Wife, I finished that. Personal Independence and Choice. Always there is resistance. Sylvia Plath's poetry, Daddy, Fighting with Hate and Love for the Identifying Father. So here in this particular poem, they have the twin emotions, love and hate, both for the father, and they are fighting each other. Lady Lazarus, Struggle to Stay Alive with Chronic Depression. This is some kind of a confessional poem for Sylvia Plath, because Sylvia Plath wanted to kill herself many times. She attempted. Finally, she succeeded when in her late 40s, she killed herself. But her entire life was a struggle. Eunice D'Souza, Eunice D'Souza is an Indian poet, and if you go through her poems, they are very beautifully written poems. Advice to women: strive against the fear of loneliness. Bequest: struggle against social expectation. If the society if the society is expecting you to behave in a certain way and you are not going to behave, then there is also a thesis and an antithesis. And finally, when you confront the society, there is going to be a synthesis. Kamala Das, The Dance of the Eunuchs, if you go through these poems, you will find how the eunuchs, that is the hermaphrodite people of the community, what you called as third gender, or what you understand as those people whom you refer to with the word hijra, the hijra community, their life is full of struggle, and that struggle Kamala Das has documented in her poem. And it is not only their struggle she talks about all the people who think that they are a part of the society, but the society is not ready to accept it. So, there is also struggle in that. We will just go through this poem called Autobiographical. It is by Eunice D'Souza. It is one of the very short poems written by her. I thought the whole world was trying to rip me up, cut me down, go through me with a razor blade. Then I discovered a cliché. That is what I wanted to do to the world. This poem, just you can also read it from the bottoms up. Bottoms up means that's what I wanted to do to the world. What did I want to do to the world? This last sentence goes back to the first one. If you just ask, what did I wanted to do to the world? You just delete this portion. I was trying to rip them up, cut them down, go through them with a razor blade. Then I discovered a cliché. This is exactly what the author also tries to do. The world is trying to do that, the author is also trying to do that. So, it is a cliché, she is not doing anything new. So, there is a thesis and an antithesis, and finally both are fighting against each other. I would also like to tell you about the staunch test. If a film, TV, single, drama or series features a woman who is beaten, stalked, sexually exploited, raped, murdered or otherwise abused, that's the staunch test fail. Staunch test is an online test platform. It is like IMDb rating of a movie or a serial. In this particular test, a movie or a film or a TV series can pass or fail. If any of these things happen to a woman, then that particular movie is considered a fail. No violence to a woman, it is a staunch test, pass. This began as the Staunch Book Prize in 2018. So, this is only a small information to you, because when there is a portion of the majority portion who are trying to tell you the idea that women should always suffer physically in order to make a book sell, this is the counter idea that no, we are going to award those books who do not show women characters being stalked or sexually abused or beaten. So, when there is one idea, there is always an opposing idea, and finally there will also be a synthesis. Thank you for staying with me throughout the lecture. I hope this particular aspect of dialectics will be very helpful for you, and when you go through the reference works, you will get to know more about this. This idea is going to be very helpful for understanding any literature in any timeline. Thank you very much. See you in the next lecture.